there's some phenomenal research that's been done around attachment style in sex.
Right.
You ready for
Cut
this?
the cameras a second. Cut the cameras, Jack. Are they off? They're off?
Okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, this is some phenomenal research that blows my mind. So these researchers looked at the number of orgasms that people have based on their attachment style and the type of sexual interaction it is. So a one-night stand, you could probably guess this, a one-night stand or a one-night, or let's say a one-night stand or casual sex. If you are secure or you are anxious, you despise that. The data showed that the percentage of people who had orgasms in one-night stands or casual sex was substantially low.
If they were
secure or anxious. But if they were avoidant, off the charts. Why? Is because the avoidants were like, oh man, I don't want the emotional connection to it, right? And I think it's just important to see, okay, well, attachment styles, it does play into how we interact and why. But when you understand who you are, you could begin to shift those patterns.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate in various ways. So you're saying that you're much less likely to have an orgasm on a one-night stand if you are a needy or a secure, because you just it won't be connecting with you. You won't be as able to be psychologically safe in that context?
Absolutely. Just as an avoidant has less number of orgasms in a friends with benefits scenario. Why? Because you have to give up some emotional intimacy as an avoidant in a friends with benefit situation, right? And whereas secure would have slightly higher than they would with a one-night stand. So all of this is really about, all of this at the end of the day, it's about really knowing who you are and why you are. Knowing attachment style, knowing about your traumas in life, knowing about your triggers, knowing about how you communicate. When you know all of these things, you become a master of your environment. Marcus Garvey from Jamaica, right? Would always say, become the person who becomes a master of self becomes a master of their environment. It always begins with self.
I've got to dig deeper on this point of sex, because it made me ask the question that, does that suggest avoidance in the bedroom will like a different type of sex to anxious? Like an avoidant might prefer a sex that is a little bit less intimate.
Right.
If you know what I mean?
So I'm going to be assuming here.
Yeah.
But I think this is a topic I need to study now. I think I'm going to do a research study on this. Seriously, is I'm willing to bet that an avoidant definitely has different sexual boundaries and different sexual interests than secure or anxious. Because ultimately, what is driving the avoidant is saying, I don't want the emotional intimacy that comes with this event. So anything that's driving the emotional intimacy, I prefer not to have it, right? So I would willing to bet avoid. It's like, let's not really talk. We don't need to talk. Is it? Do we need to talk? No, we don't need to talk.
We don't
about
need to
anything.
kiss.
No, that's kissing. No, let's not kiss. Whereas I would willing to bet a secure wants and needs that. It's a good study.
And an anxious.
Oh, I mean, even more so. An anxious probably needs 2 days of foreplay, before.
And an avoidant just wants a transaction.
Just wants a transaction, right? Let's make it efficient.
Maybe that's part of the reason, last time we spoke, I was speaking about different sex languages. The way I described it was figuring out that my girlfriend was speaking Spanish and I was speaking like French in the bedroom. And we just needed to find a mutual language, or I speak a little bit of French, she speaks a little bit of Spanish, whatever. This is a metaphor for different types of sort of sexual preference or fantasy or things that turn you on. But maybe that goes to explain why so many couples are struggling in the bedroom, because one of them wants a certain type of sex and the other wants much more emotional sex.
Yes. This is such an important topic, because I think when you can see your partner through that lens, it's no longer, oh my God, can you believe it? He didn't even want to kiss me. Like he's an asshole. But what it could be is that he is severely avoidant. This is what he learned from his parents, and these are behaviors that can change. So let's work on the behaviors. Like I rarely do we have bad people. Rarely. Yes, there's a whole cohort of the dark tetrad. There are bad people, but most people are good, but simply have bad behaviors. We can work on the behaviors.
Or just different behaviors.
Or different behaviors. Yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Different behaviors.
I'm really just pondering this idea of these avoidance, because I'm an avoidant, and none of my fantasies, none of the things that really turn me on involve like talking and like, you know, that like the things that you think of, which is all about like emotional connection and all that stuff. Those aren't the things that I hold as like fantasies, right? Those aren't the things. And I was thinking about how our fantasies are derived from much of our like trauma and our upbringing and our disconnection and our, you know, if you were bullied in school.
Yes.
I see this a lot, actually. I remember it just took my head flashback to when I was 18 and I met a guy, and one of his fantasies that he was very vocal about was because he was powerless when he was younger. He was powerless in school. Mm-hmm. And so he liked using terminology in the bedroom. I remember him saying this to me that made him feel empowered. Mm. And I remember thinking, what a fucking weirdo, like at the time.
Yeah.
Because it seemed a little bit sadistic, what he was saying. But to think that something that happens on the playground can translate right to the bedroom when you're 35 years old, and the thing that gives you an erection is pretty interesting. It's worth some further inspection.
It is. I mean, how our experiences at home as we grew up, our experiences on the playground, our experiences with our first lovers, but even beyond that, the experiences that our great grandparents had, the wars that they were in, the Holocaust that they were in, the transatlantic slave trade that they were a part of, all of these intergenerational bits of trauma, right? All of these things shape how we show up. It shapes who you are today. It shapes who I am today. And that's why we have to go back and understand this. And when you can understand that, you can more fully appreciate your partner. You know, just like you're saying with your friend, I think it's so great because you're saying, okay, when I heard this, it sounded crazy talk, but now I understand, so we could begin to dialogue about this. You know? And
it's an interesting question whether his fetish is wrong and it needs fixing and it's like yuck, or if it's just different. Mm-hmm. And I guess that comes down to whether it hurts anybody.
Yeah,
I guess that's the key.
Exactly.
Filter.
Exactly. If it hurts, he's in the sadist category, mm-hmm. and that's something that should be addressed.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.